Welcome to Uncanny X-Minutes, where we bring you the comics behind the movies. I'm Stasha.
Producer James.
And we're here to watch X-Men First Class minutes 90 through 100.
Would you like to know what happens?
Of course, as usual.
All right. Mystique starts using her natural form. The X-Men suit up for the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Professor X averts war while Banshee shows off his powers.
Banshee.
Banshee.
We're going to talk about Banshee today.
Let's talk about Banshee.
Sean Cassidy.
Yep.
Is that his full name in this movie? Technically. I assume it is.
I mean, I didn't.
I don't remember hearing them say it out loud.
I don't know if they.
I don't think they did.
I don't even know if they say his name.
I think they say Sean not in this 10 minutes, but the 10 minutes before when they're pushing him off the building.
Yeah.
I do think they say Sean, but I don't know if they say Sean Cassidy.
That's hilarious. According to IMDb, it just says Cassidy.
Interesting.
Now that you're mentioning it.
Now that I'm mentioning it. Maybe they say Cassidy and not Sean.
It says Cassidy/Banshee.
Interesting. I hate that. His name's Sean Cassidy. Okay?
I hate that.
I'm a grumpy old lady. It's fine.
You probably hate that he's so young.
That is confusing. So the thing about Banshee is that he is actually quite an old character, relatively, for X-Men.
Both he showed up early and is older?
Yeah, I suppose, yes. I was primarily talking about Uncanny X-Men, number 28, 1967.
So early.
Very early. He is a man that is controlled by the Ogre, a character who I don't know. I've read it, but
he is in this issue, and then he shows up again way later. It's one of those characters that everyone forgot about, and then I want to say it's the Thunderbolts. He comes back for a Thunderbolts comic.
That's insanity. Basically, he is being controlled by this headpiece. So he's kind of...
Which, when you're reading the comic, you're like, why is Banshee wearing a headpiece? It looks dumb.
It does look dumb. It matches his suit perfectly, though. So
so it looks like
it
matches.
looks like it's part of his costume. So it is because that's supposed to mislead you, gentle reader, because that's actually the possession by Ogre, and he's a good guy, even though the whole thing is he's set up to be a bad guy.
It's one of those classic twists at the end of the issue where Professor X is like, no, wait, hold on. And then the thing comes off and they're like, he was a good guy the whole time.
Yeah. There's that whole scene where Professor X is like, I let him free on purpose. And you're like, is this the heel turn?
Oh boy, Professor. Maybe for a guy who literally communicates psychically, does not tell his team enough.
It's so true that it's it was just part of the stories, obviously in the 60s when they were writing this. But because it's just,
it's fun storytelling.
Kind of popcorn.
Yeah.
They're keeping the secrets from the reader, but it's very interesting. And this is kind of the fun part. This is why I enjoy comics. This is a little bit of an aside, but there is just so much time and so much space between stories that things that were written for a certain era or for a certain style become part of a character's persona because that's the way it makes sense today.
Yeah.
And so Professor X being weirdly secretive even for his own team and not sharing information or whatever, that is core part of his character. But if you are reading the 60s comics, that's not really what they're going for.
No.
But that becomes true inherently because of what how comics work. And it's just such a fun thing to see a character evolve in that way.
I think also Stan Lee falls into the same traps over and over again. And the people, this is Roy Thomas. This isn't even Stan Lee, but he continues the tradition writing the later X-Men comics. So it doesn't go away.
No. Also, the man that didn't want to write backstories, which is why he made them mutants, falls into the same traps. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. Banshee is one of those characters. So he is kind of introduced, but he is, I would say, tertiary is probably a good way to say. He never
he doesn't shine as much.
Yeah. He doesn't also completely disappear either.
No.
He's around. He will show up, especially in crossovers in Claremont area. He really shows up. He's around. I would not be surprised if I said, do you know who Banshee is, to like a casual like Marvel person who are into the Marvel universe.
Like my daughter reads a bunch.
Yeah.
If I were to ask her who Banshee is, she'd be like, oh.
Yes. And I think that's fair, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like, it's weird though, because usually X-Men that are this old are much more famous.
Someone's taken a turn that's like, ooh, they are now important. Like Multiple Man.
Yes.
He was kind of a background character.
Absolutely.
Until he wasn't.
Yes.
I feel like Siren, Banshee's daughter, has more like presence than Banshee.
Because she comes up in that era. She's with X-Force during Cable Run, and that
she's an X Factor.
Yeah.
She's
There's a lot of like internet disparaging, mostly of the artwork and let's say the feet, of that era. But going back and doing this podcast and like going through this and thinking about things that I like about X-Men and the things that I remember, my God, was the X-Force Cable Run so impactful. Like I was bitter because it was like it ruined New Mutants for me, but like I do enjoy Cable. He's one of my favorite characters, and like thinking about how much it shaped comics moving forward for it, you can't ignore it. It is such a huge part, which I think is why Siren gets a little bit of a boost, because she's part, not the whole time, but like she's in that X-Force team. Like X-Force becomes a thing while she's there.
Funnily enough, I couldn't find a citation for this, but like I did find something that said originally Banshee was created to be female.
Really? So
and Stan Lee said that female villains were not as popular as male ones. So they changed it into a male.
Changed it to a man. Interesting. I kind of
basically
like that.
Siren was who Banshee was
supposed to be. So okay.
That's also another example, if anyone's taking score at home, of the father, or of like a parent and a child having the same powers.
Yeah.
Is a Banshee Siren situation.
I forgot to mention, that's true. Except, okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of powers.
Yeah.
Did you catch, because it sounds like you did reread that comic, number 28 in X-Men.
Yeah.
Did you catch his power in that?
He has a few in that one. So normally it's just like the sonic scream.
That's the classic.
That's what makes him fly.
That's
just
what's
like
in the
movie. Yeah. Perfect. Well done. He also can vibrate himself so that you can't see who he is. So that's fun.
Yes.
He also has a hypnotic trance.
And he also can scream to disintegrate the metal.
There is actually a deleted scene of him doing that in this movie.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. He still does that. That is still...
No, like they put up a like a metal like statue or something, like a sculpture, and they had him literally screaming at it to see if he could melt it. Like kind of like that's what it looks like. It's melting.
He's doing, yeah.
Yeah.
The invisibility.
Yeah.
Not super common with him.
No.
This is very similar to Nightcrawler. Like there were these like invisibility stuff.
Selective continuity right here.
Very selective. I reread it twice. A thing I've read already, because I was like, invisible. And I was like, wait, is it the headband? Because I'm like, this doesn't track. Like he does not have that power. Here's the other fun thing. Speaking of his powers, do you know he loses them pretty frequently?
Yeah.
He's done it twice already.
There's once in the Claremont run.
Yes.
Where he overuses it.
So I reread it because in my head, I was like, this is the same thing with Storm. And I'm glad I double checked myself. I didn't trust my brain. Because in my head, I thought it was there's something with Proteus. Because so there's this big thing with Proteus. We'll get there in a second. That's Moira McTaggart's son. And I thought it was something to do with Proteus, which is why he lost his powers. But that's not true. He loses his powers because they're in Japan and they're fighting Moses Magnum, a person that I also do not know. And
he shows up, I think, a few times,
but like not super common.
You shouldn't know who he is.
Yes,
no.
He's creating earthquakes or whatever, and he's like to take over Japan, and he blocks it. He's with, I think it's like Sunfire and probably somebody else.
Yeah, I think it's.
I'm pretty sure it is. He like screams and he like ruins his throat to prevent that.
Overdoes it.
He overdoes it.
Yeah. It's one of those few powers that feels like it's very much based on the physical attributes of the person.
Yes.
Like it's not just like he can magically scream. Like his vocal cords are yada yada yada. So they are like, I mean, they do it in the movie. This is a muscle.
Yes.
Use it. You know, like they do it. They describe it just like I think it is in the comics.
It's also really interesting because he's like one of those people that has a power that does not heal in a way. Like you can see
Yeah.
like there's a lot of superheroes that have like for example,
I think Angel does a lot. Like,
yes,
he's like, oh, his wings got injured, and then he just sits out for a couple of issues, and then he's better.
Right. There's also superheroes that kind of have like tertiary powers that make their original power work. I think DC has the best example of this. The Flash, like if he didn't have like technically his body was not also super resilient, like humans moving at that speed would like cause major issues, right?
There's a whole thing about it.
Okay.
There's like he has basically a force field around him when he uses his powers.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like you need an explanation.
They had to explain it later though. That was not
people
like
started asking questions about like, wait a second, how
what
is
about
he
all
alive?
the friction?
Yeah. So that's like all of that to say, I find it to be pretty interesting when you have superheroes who don't have those things, that their powers kind of have limits on them, especially superheroes that are like in big teams like the X-Men. Like Banshee is on the X-Men.
Yeah.
He is frequently on the X-Men. Maybe not as frequently as some people, but a solid member. The only other person I could really think of, I feel like Chamber is similar in that like his power ruined his face. Like he lost like parts of his like body because of his power, and he does not heal from that. That's why he wears the scarf. Like, you know,
I feel like it's more real.
Yes, absolutely.
Like Banshee, like your voice isn't something you're supposed to be using all the time, and you're not supposed to be stressing all the time. Like, it's funny, my wife's a singer, and every once in a while we'll hear a song on the radio and she'll be like, oof, they are stressing their voice so much I can hear it. And I'm like, interesting, because I don't hear it.
Right.
I don't have a classically trained voice, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's the case, where it's like, it's something he has to learn how to use properly, because your voice specifically, if you abuse it, you lose it.
Right.
And it rhymes, so it's true.
That's how this always stands, right?
That's how facts work.
He loses it during that fight. And he also loses it during Mystique cuts his throat.
I was going to say, I think somebody cut his throat once, right? Yeah, there it was.
In fact, Mystique.
I mean, who else would?
I mean,
it's Mystique.
Really. So,
I mean, there is also a whole side story. I believe it was in like, this isn't his specific voice, but Banshee's had it rough sometimes. And
yes,
there is an X Lives of Wolverine issue where Moira McTaggart, like, to get through the Krakoan gates, peels off his face, basically kills him for his face.
Okay, so let's talk about...
I might cut that. That's a bit dark.
No, I feel like that happened and we need to talk about it. Let's talk about Moira McTaggart.
Yeah.
So Moira McTaggart is the character in the X universe that is most tied to Banshee romantically. He had a wife, Maeve Rourke.
And that's Siren's mom.
That's Siren's mom. There's a backstory, and just kind of like we've talked about with a lot of X-Men, right? Like you have these characters that were introduced really early on that were just kind of throwaway characters that became something, and then they had to backfill a story because the comics weren't like that, and now everybody has backstories, and it's weird that this person doesn't, right? So then,
especially with him being slightly older.
Exactly. So
canonically slightly older.
Yes. So they do full backstories on Banshee, on Sean Cassidy, where they talk about Cassidy Keep, which is where he lives with his cousin, Black Tom Cassidy. Well, at the time, Tom Cassidy.
Right.
Now known as Black Tom Cassidy.
So if you've seen Deadpool, we'll talk about him.
We'll talk about him
Deadpool
there.
too.
I had to take everything. I love Black Tom Cassidy more than I love Banshee, I must admit. I apologize.
Well, especially nowadays.
Yes, especially nowadays.
But we'll get to that.
Yes, so I had to pull back, but from the Republic of Ireland, and he used to be an Interpol agent, or at least this is the retcon. His wife was killed in an IRA bombing while he was dispatched with Interpol. She also was pregnant and gave birth during the time he was gone, so a very long period of time that he was gone.
Yeah.
And the reason that his daughter, Teresa, aka Siren, doesn't show up in his 60s run, which they had to explain why he has this daughter that is not around. And it's because Tom raised her. And when Banshee came back from his Interpol to find his wife dead, he was so angry. He ended up inadvertently, maybe advertently because he pushes him, but like injuring Tom. And Tom gets so angry that he refuses. He knows that he's going to keep Teresa a secret from him. So they reunite much later, which
Sure.
like makes like you can just see the writers be like, okay, we're gonna create a backstory. We're giving him a daughter. Her name is Teresa. She's gonna be Siren. How
But
do we
she hasn't been around for
explain that
years.
she hasn't been around for 20
They're
years.
just estranged. Done. Why gotta make it complicated?
Right.
He's just a bad father.
He didn't know she existed. So they
Well,
were
that's
really
what
they
they
were
went with.
really
I just-
trying to do that. And so like that's part of it.
Also, I just want to mention that Cassidy Keep is a home to leprechauns.
It
It's just a
is.
fact.
That is actually a true statement. I refuse to elaborate.
No. and this is not a selective continuity. They come back.
Yes.
It's not a one issue and done situation. The leprechauns live at Cassidy Keep.
It's actually mind-boggling how often they reference the leprechauns at Cassidy Keep. I'm positive there's like it's like a joke in the writers' room that they just like pin to a wall, and it's like we'll never
Don't
forget
forget
this.
the leprechauns.
Yeah.
I said it to our other co-host from the other show, and he thought I was doing a bit, and I had to stop him and go, "This is no bit.
We're not kidding.
I'm not. I will not joke about the Cassidy Keep leprechauns."
Well, not absolutely not. I think they're in Excalibur. I think that's where
Awesome.
when they start. Technically, I remember that issue, and I'm pretty sure it's from Excalibur. Moira McTaggart. We're not going into Moira today. It's too much. It's too deep. But all you need to know
we'll follow
is
her later.
we will. She runs Muir Island. She is a scientist and frequently helps out Professor X. They're bros. They hang out a lot. Muir Island is frequently a place for a lot of mutants that do not feel like they want to be on the X-Men anymore, but also don't want to like mingle with the Gen Pop. And so Muir Island is frequently a secondary location where a lot of like mutant teams will split out. That's actually what happens. Like, so we have Banshee loses his voice, and then there's an issue in Muir Island with Proteus. Can't get into Proteus, refuse to get into Proteus. But all you need to know is that's Moira Taggart's son. He is a super powerful mutant. They had to stop him, and they do. And during that, Banshee ends up on Muir Island, and he decides to stay there. He leaves the X-Men to stay with Moira, and they have a budding relationship. This relationship lasts a very long time. They're kind of in and out, but they are dating basically all the way through, almost to the end of Generation X, where Banshee is a teacher at the school. So this is like post Xavier. It's him and Emma Frost, and they're raising Generation X. That's your favorite team, your favorite young team. Mine's the New Mutants. Yours is Generation X.
I wouldn't say it's Generation X, but I do enjoy them.
Okay, that's fair. Maybe what's your favorite team then? If you had to say the kids,
Out of the kids,
yeah.
I came back in around Young X-Men with like Rock Slide and Blindfold.
Okay, yeah.
That group.
I like Blindfold.
Null, Surge.
Okay.
That group is when I came back in, and then I really dug in when like Hope showed up, and
So
then
the
she
Hope
had her
kids.
lights, and yeah. So that's where
That makes
that's what I'd
sense.
say.
This is just another iteration of the school, and so Banshee becomes relatively popular for this run with him and Emma Frost. I mean, they're literally running the school. They become the Xaviers. And during this time, he's technically still dating Moira. And they kind of break up at the end of this run a little bit. But sometimes writers will dip back in and out with them.
Yeah.
So she's just like she's been frequently a long-term love interest of his. Back to his daughter, Teresa, the other woman in his life,
Yeah.
Siren. They have a very complicated relationship because she, like, it's really interesting because, like, there's a reunion where, like, Tom Cassidy, they think he's dead. He's not.
No.
Crazy. But they think he's dead. He leaves a message with Teresa, a note, and like she gives it to Banshee. And there's like this like really lovely scene where like he picks her up and it's talking about how happy he is, and he's like, life is like, his heart's beating again and things like that. Like he's so excited to have a daughter. As the comics progress, I think they take a much more grounded approach between their relationship in that Teresa doesn't know him. And this is like during that, when she's in X-Force, this kind of Generation X, when he's at the school. It's not a bad relationship exactly during that time, but like there's a point where he like goes to her and says like, maybe I can't be your father to you, but at least maybe I could be a friend. And that's what she's looking for. Like, they don't have that kind of connection that maybe he hopes for because they've been estranged for so long and they just don't know each other super well. There's also a point at which Siren loses her powers because her voice, like, there's something that happens and she can't use them.
So it's genetic, losing your voice.
Well, I don't think it was a genetic thing. I think somebody probably cut her throat too, if I remember correctly. But she refuses to talk to Banshee, despite him having gone through a similar experience. And she ends up moving to live with an aunt, like a distant aunt. I think for this, they were just kind of writing her out of the comics for a little bit. But, like, it's brutal. Like, it's like, wow, this would have been a, like, you can see from, like, a writing standpoint how interesting this is, right? It's like, this is a point where he feels like he can connect to his daughter. This is like, she's going through a horrible thing. He's ready to be there for her. And she's like, I don't know you. Crazy. Like, not exactly that harsh, but like, that's kind of where we're at. Banshee is relatively, and Siren, I would say, in modern comics, they're around. There are books about them. You can read about them. I'm not, like, totally completely caught up to date with that, so I won't point you in any of those directions unless there's, like, a particular run that you like. But...
I mean, if for interesting story's sake, he shows up in Legion of X, which is Krakoan era, and just quick Cliff Notes version. He ends up making a deal with Mother Righteous, which is actually a Sinister, not clone, but like offshoot. It's a weird thing that I don't have time for.
We don't have time for this.
Don't have time for it. Looks like his wife.
It's so interesting, though.
Looks like his wife, Nathaniel Essex's wife.
Yes,
yeah, there
Mr. Sinister's.
Mr.
wife.
Sinister's, like, when he looks like a human, his wife. She makes a deal with him, and he gets bonded with the Spirit of Variance, which is sort of like a Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. It's called the Vox Ignis.
Mm-hmm.
And he has that for quite some time. And if you read Sins of Sinister, he has this thing for 1,000 years and works side by side with Mother Righteous. He doesn't have it anymore. Like, that's just during not even all of Krakoa. Like, just like a chunk in the middle. But other than that, I don't know what he's been up to.
I like the Ghost Rider thing. That was
so
part of
it is his outfit. It's his Banshee outfit with a flaming skull head.
It's cool.
Kind of cool.
It's pretty cool.
And he kind of talks as both. So it's not like Ghost Rider, where Ghost Rider is both Johnny Blaze and the Rider, and he kind of switches back and forth. He is Flaming Skull the whole time, and he talks as Banshee and the spirit. Like, they kind of go back and forth talking from the same body. Yeah. So the speech bubbles change.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But other than that, that's all I can think of with what is currently going on with him.
Yeah. He is not with Moira in Krakoa.
No, well, that's Krakoa's all messy. And maybe we'll talk about that when we talk about Moira.
Yes. But, like, during the part, during her legacy virus, he's basically with her until she, quote unquote, heavy quote unquote, dies from
she gets better. It's fine.
Yeah. And then she was also killed by Mystique. Mystique was up to some stuff during the Generation X era. She was really leaning into being a bad guy, which, if you would listen to our other podcast about Mystique, we don't talk about, because that's, like, almost irrelevant nowadays. Like, she's much more of a gray, but during this period, I would say she's pretty evil.
I feel like this is one of those, I could see somebody going back and writing a reason why she was doing it, because that's the thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's reasons.
Yes.
And that makes her more of an interesting character. It's not just she is evil.
Yeah.
She is doing things for her own reasons, or the reasons are beneficial to her and Destiny.
Yeah. So she kills Moira. He starts X-Corps. So that is the paramilitary mutant police.
Ah, I forgot about X-Corps. You're right.
Not to be confused with X-Corp.
The corporation.
The corporation, which is a different thing.
Yeah.
Kind of.
He was.
Actually. Only kind of. So here's why. X-Corps, he runs X-Corps. And so basically what he is doing as a former Interpol agent, I think this backstory works. He wants to police mutants. This makes sense. His girlfriend just got murdered by Mystique because she was off doing megalomaniac stuff. And so he, in his opinion, he thinks that mutants needs to be policed, and he says only other mutants can police mutants. He starts X-Corps. fine. A lot of the some of the Gen X kids join him for this as well. Despite concerns from other X-Men, because they're like, hey, you have this police thing. You're like hunting mutants down and stuff. First of all, the original X Factor, we already did this. Jean Grey and Cyclops literally did this already.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, this was a bad idea. And like, now that you're doing this as paramilitary, it's an even worse idea.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe it. He refuses to believe it. And actually, this is how he loses his powers a second time, because Mystique cuts his throat because she infiltrates X-Corps. So, X-Corps disbands almost entirely, but not quite, because it doesn't actually disband. It gets folded into X Corporation, run by Professor Xavier.
There it is.
So X Corps does turn into X Corp, but technically different.
Yeah.
And if you are interested about that storyline, that's X-Men 405-ish, maybe an issue before, or issue after as well. If you're interested in that, that's when that goes down. He loses his powers a second time. And this time, I don't remember exactly how he gets it back. I know the first time he gets it back because a Morlock healer heals him.
The Morlock named healer.
Yes, correct.
Not a Morlock healer. The Morlock healer.
Both. He is a Morlock healer. His name is also Healer. He's kind of frequently painted as a failure, though I would argue that a lot of this isn't really his fault.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we talk a lot about, not to always bring it back to Cyclops, but we talk a lot about sometimes, like, Cyclops makes a lot of unforced errors sometimes, right? Like, there's a lot of issues that he, you know, with Emma Frost in particular, like that he just puts himself into situations that get two psychic women real pissed at him, right? Like, it's not ideal.
Yeah.
Banshee doesn't really, like, it seems like the kind of thread for Banshee is that he's kind of like trying to make his life work, and then Mystique like comes in and blows it up for like her own reasons that have pretty much nothing to do with him, and she ruins his life.
It's not personal.
On multiple occasions. You know, he has to deal with the fallout of that. And then, like, no, for example, his wife, like, I think it's also kind of interesting because it's kind of Magneto-esque, right? And that they're trying to correlate his experience with, like, a lived experience of, like, trauma and unrest, right? Of, like, talking about IRA bombings, and, like, he's from the Republic of Ireland. And, like, his wife dies because of that. It's not a mutant thing.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's just a history thing. Him and Magneto are the two in particular that I think of, like, they really wrote it around that. Something to keep in mind. They didn't write that in the 60s. That comes much, much later.
Yeah, they don't write that stuff in the 60s.
No. That's why this is a retcon to that original. So sometimes it's tricky because you're like, oh, these are like, this is like his origin story, but it comes like decades after his introduction.
Right.
Kind of like a lot of them. So.
Right.
That is Sean Cassie. There's more, of course, but that just gives you like a general overview. He's like a chill guy. He wants to be there for his daughter. He really loves Moira McTaggart. He doesn't get in any trouble, but trouble seems to find him.
There you go.
That's it. I'm curious. I'm going to have to reread the Ghost Rider because I'm really interested.
The spirit of variance.
Yes, like how that works out for him.
Yeah, I couldn't remember how it ended, but...
Yeah, it's just some sort of...
But he doesn't have it anymore, I don't think.
You know, Ghost Riders, come and they go.
They do.
All right, well, that's it. I'm Stasha.
I'm producer James.
And we'll see you for the next time.